All right, so I'm just going to go over the basics of class making, which is inevitable in this problem, and then an array list of these objects. Okay, so hopefully you have the file, you can see it. So it's a class called pet, and we just have to create the pet. So here's the constructor. Remember, constructors have the same name as the class. These are my fields. And these are the things that instantiate, give those fields good values. So name and age go first because they're the name of the fields. And N would go there because it's a string, and A would go there. Unless they tell you differently, that's kind of how it works. Okay, get name. So we know this is a getter, so all we have to do is return name. Make sure you're using the same name as your field name. Okay, then create a new method called getAge. So we're trying to test to make sure that you actually know, that this is going to be returning an int, because that's what age is. I think. Let me just check. Yeah, age is an int. So it's going to be returning an integer. It's called getAge. And then it's going to just simply return the age. All right. So it's just these are just basic class methods. Make a new method called isOld that will return true if the age is greater than 15. Okay, sorry. So we're creating a new method called isOld that will return true. So it's called isOld. Methods are public in our world. Okay, it returns true, so it's going to return a Boolean. Then it's called isOld, and there's no parameters because it didn't say it takes anything. So then all we have to do is return true if the age is greater than 15. So you could create an if statement, or you could just return the Boolean statement age is greater than 15. If this is true, it will be true. If it's false, it will return false. The toString, we didn't get very specifics on how you'd want to do it, so we're going to just simply return the name and the age. So I'm just going to do a name and then get, so then we're just, you don't have to use you do not have to use the methods here because we're still in the class, so we can just return name and then with the space just for prettiness, and I can return the age. So all these going together is your toString, so in any println, we're going to have that basic output. So just as, to keep you on track, make sure you understand how to use classes, because if you don't know how to use classes, you won't know how to use array lists, of those objects using the classes. So instantiate two new pet objects. So a few things you have to remember. So the name of it is a pet. I really don't feel like looking and remembering. Okay, so my dog's name is Percy. So remember, you have to put new. So this is the reference type, and then this side is the instantiated type. Instantiated type, or part of it, whatever. I'm just using words. Okay, so after that, we have to write the name of the pet, the name of the class, and then the two parameters that are in the constructor. So the constructor up here, all the way up here, this is the constructor. The constructor has two parameters. Ooh, look, I highlighted. It has two parameters. So you need to have two parameters when you're instantiating any object here. So I'm going to call mine Percy because that's his name. And he's like, I think we just figured this out, 11 years old. Well, actually, I think he's 12, but whatever. So then we have a pet. We'll call him Buddy. A new one. New pet. And in quotes, because this is a string, Buddy, comma, whatever. He's 5 years old. Okay, so the instantiated part is the important part that I want you to remember. Every time you're creating a new object, you need this part of it. Okay, print out each one using system.out. So if we have system.out, .print, I'm not writing this for the next one, I would just output Percy. And because the toString is doing all the work for me, I could just do Buddy also after having put those things down. So because I have already created this toString, I don't even have to use the toString method. It automatically calls it because of the whole inheritance piece that we skipped over in this class, but whatever, it just does it. Okay, so calling Percy like that would be the same as calling Percy.toString. It automatically does it. It means the same exact thing. It still has to be in the system.out.println, but it doesn't have to be, you don't actually need the toString method to run it. Excuse me. All right, so now we're going to create a zoo with a bunch of pets. Okay, so the thing that we have to remember that this is all pets. So we have to use that class whenever we need parts of the class. Okay, so just to instantiate this, always remember you have an array list, or even any type of object or integer or number, anything needs to be given a starting value in the constructor. So this is the constructor. Now the deal is with this, it's an array list, so you have to instantiate it. So you need to have the second half here. So you need to have the name, because you need to have the name. That's how you give fields values. And then you have to declare instantiate your array list. So array list. Oh, they did list. I forgot to fix that. Sorry. It should be array list. They've taken that out of the curriculum. So then array list pet, and then the parentheses semicolon. This part, every time you have an array list as a field, this part needs to be in the constructor. Okay? So this in the constructor. Please remember that. That needs to be there. The parentheses, the semicolon, the name of the class, etc. Okay, so now I want to add a pet to it. Now, what they're giving me, they're not giving me a pet. They're giving me a string and an integer. So they're giving me a name and an age. They're not giving me a pet. Okay, so I have to create a new pet in order to add it in. So the name of my array list is called animals. So I have to add to it. So it's animals.add, which is totally fine because animals is an array list, so it knows what method to call. It knows it's not calling this one. And then I need to add a new pet. So I can't just write N and A. I have to write new, because remember we did that over here in order to instantiate it. Sorry, sound effects as we move around. This is the part that you need. You need a new pet. This is the instantiated piece. So that needs to be included when you're creating a new object. When you're putting an object into an array list, it needs to be an object, not just a string. So new pet, and then NA. Okay, and that will do it for it. So sorry, I'm just following along, and I just need to make sure, because I'm not, when I create these videos, I get a little nervous. Okay, so make a new method called count old ones that will return the count of all the old animals. So this is us traversing through an array list. So, and we have to determine what's old and what's not. So we can use, for this particular one, we're just counting the number of old ones. So we could use an enhanced for loop, but I'm going to not, because I'm just not. Okay, so we want that will return. Okay, so it's going to be public int, because it's returning how many old ones there are. It's called count old ones. So getting the method header right is key. Okay, what's returned, if there are any parameters, there aren't in this one, the name is correct, and having it public, or just at least not private. So we're going to count it. So we need a counter. And you should always start your counters out at 0 if you're counting. All right, so then for the array list, we're going to go through it in I equals 0. I is less than. So here we go. This one, we're going through animals. And remember, array lists use size. So make sure you're using size for your array list. Okay, now we just have to determine if each, so we're going from 0 to the end, so we just have to determine if it's old or not. So I don't really need curly brackets here because it's really just one line, it's just one if statement, and I'm going to run out of space, so I'm just not going to put them. So in order to get a value from an array list, we need to write the name of the array list, dot get I. Okay, if this was an enhanced for loop, I could skip that part, but it's not. So animals.getI. Now I'm in the object. So here I am. This is the array list. It's got names and ages in each one, right? So I got into the array list. Now I need to get the name and the age. Well, actually, if I needed to get the name or the age, I would have to use the get name or get age. What I want to use for this one is, what did I have to use? The, what was it called? Old ones? Sorry. Is old. Okay, so for this one, in order to know if it's old or not, I have to use the isOld method. So isOld. Now, a lot of you like to say is equal to true. That's fine, but that's unnecessary for this particular case. But I'm just going to leave it in because some of you are more comfortable, and those of you that understand this, this won't bother you, so it's good. So then we just count it, and then we're done. Once it's gone through the whole thing, it counts how many are old, and then at the end, just make sure you return count, semicolon. Okay, so remember, using an array list, you need this, use get, and anytime you have to use any part of that object, you have to use methods to use it. So for this particular one, I need to use isOld. If I wanted to get their name, I would have to use .getName, and the age, .getAge. Okay, so for this one, make a method called oldest that returns the oldest animal. So it's actually returning an object. So, oh, I'm writing in red, but whatever. Okay, so it returns the oldest animal, so it's going to be returning a pet. So since it's returning the pet, I'm going to be calling oldest, call it oldest, and I have to traverse the array again. So it's the same basic for loop here, but you could also use an enhanced for loop. But again, I'm just going to stick with the regular for loop. So remember, for finding oldest and all things like that, to find the oldest, you need something that keeps track of your max age here. So whenever you have max, you're finding max, the best idea you could use is find the smallest value you could have. So -1 would be a good one for this. Integer minimum value is good. So look at your reference sheet. Always use, if you're finding a max, always find the youngest, you know, the lowest value you possibly could, and going ridiculously low, like -1 in this case. So then what we want to do is traverse the array list. So in I, see, Ooh, this is just, whenever I rush, I'm going to go slower. I know you don't want me to because you want this to hurry up. Okay, so that's traversing the array list. And what I want to see is if the max age is bigger or smaller, depending on how we're working it here. So I'm going to do the age first. So I'm going to say animals. So here I need to get the animal's age. So since I want to get the animal's age, I'm going to use get I, because I need to get into the array list first, and then get age. So there's 2 steps to this that you have to make sure you're following. So if this age is greater than the max right now, then I want to remember the value. So I want to store this value. Now the problem is I'm running out of space here, so I'm going to keep track of the index, the max index. So again, I'm making that one -1. So we're going to say max is equal to this mess right here. I'm going to go into the 2-string because the 2-string is really short. Dot get I dot get age. So I have to keep track when you're doing maxes and mins, you have to keep track of the maximum one that you have right now. And in this case, I'm going to keep track of the max index because it's going to be the easiest thing for me. So I'm going through the whole thing. Okay, curly brackets all around. And then when I'm finished, I am going to, when this is over, it's going to have the max value. I'm going to return animals dot get, and then its index. So a few things I want to remind you of here. One, we're using, I know this is a little long and I apologize. When you're doing max, start low. Okay? Start as low as you can. Array lists, use size. You have to use animals.getI or the name of the array list.getI. And in order to get the age, I need that. Oh, yeah. So then the max, when we figure out the max, you got to keep track of one, the biggest thing. So in this case, it's this one. And then whatever you want to return. So I want to return the pet that's at that spot. So I am going to use, just keep track of the index. You could have also kept track of the pet, and that would have been fine. I just was running out of space, so I did it this way. Okay, so a few things to remember about that. A lot of fun stuff here. Okay, and now the 2-string, what's nice is array lists just have 2 strings built in, so all you really have to do is return. And all you have to return is, just do this. Yeah. Animals. I just do that to make sure that says animals, not anims. Okay, animals is a array list, so it has a 2-string built in, and since animals is an array list of pets, and we wrote the 2-string in the pet class, we're done for that. Okay, yeah, I meant to do this. All right, we're going to end it here. So hopefully you are getting the array list thing, and the class is down a little bit, and I hope this helps a little.